which I know everybody loves to hear. But
Okay.
anyway,
We're now actually going to welcome our dear friend Lorna from Ananda, Portland, who's joining us to help us celebrate this wonderful holiday season. And so thank you, Lorna.
Oh, welcome. Hello, hello. Welcome to Portland. You're here. You're here in my world of I'm in the chapel at the Ananda community here in Portland, and it's so nice to see everybody here in Texas. I told my friend last night we had our World Brotherhood Day event here in Portland. And I was reminding my friends before I left for the evening, I said, now remember, I'm not going to be there tomorrow, being at our Sunday service here. I'm going to be in Texas. And she said, really? Are you going to Texas tonight? No, I'm just going to be there in the morning. The magic of Zoom. And anyway, it's just fun to be here with you. And the Christmas season is just, all of it's lovely. I'm seeing some of the beautiful altars there. So Priya, you're just looking lovely there with that. And then when you did the meditation and you showed the beautiful Christmas altar, that's just, I just love it all. It's all just beautiful and wonderful. And thank you for inviting me to be here, and for this topic that we have this morning is fun, and it's about the easiest one of all of Swami's readings, because it opens it up to everything. He says, look for God everywhere. And so, I can talk about anything because God is everywhere. And this idea of being and being practical about it is really fun. So Swami tells us, and Master, of course, that there's two ways. If we're going to find God everywhere, we're going to look for God everywhere. There's two ways to do that. One is the inner way through meditation, which we all know. Meditation is the core, the foundation, the whatever you want to call it. It's everywhere. And so looking for God inwardly, doing our meditation, doing our Kriya, finding that place inside where our consciousness expands and we tap into that awareness of God's presence in everything. So when we meditate and we expand our consciousness that way, then it affects everything outwardly too, of course, because as our consciousness changes and we become more aware of our connection with Christ, with God, with Divine Mother, with all the gurus, with the masters, with all of that, as we become more aware of that inwardly, then naturally, everything we do outwardly is touched by that. Our consciousness changes, and we start seeing God outwardly in everything as well, in other people, in all circumstances. And then the other way to do it is the other way around, which is what Jesus was talking about in the reading today, that when I was hungry, you gave me food. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was, alone, you came and visited me. The other way is the social way, is through other people, is outwardly. So we look for God in an outward way, serving, seeing God in other people, treating them as if God were there. And that expands our consciousness. And then when we expand our consciousness in an outward way, of course, when we go into meditation, it's also going to help us expand our awareness and feel that connection inwardly. So you can't lose. There's just no way you can lose here. There's always a way to try to look for God and to find him or her or master or one of the avatars. There's always a way to connect and to find that. Even if you're not aware, the interesting thing is that Jesus was talking about, I was hungry and you came, and they said, when did that happen? We didn't serve you. And he said, but you did through all these people. So what he was saying is they didn't even know. Their service, they were serving others. They were finding ways to help others, and they didn't even know that Christ was there. So it wasn't like they were aware and saying, like Mother Teresa, who said she saw Christ in every person that she served, every, dying person on the street. She saw Christ. Well, you don't have to be at that level of consciousness. You just have to try to serve outside of yourself. You just have to try to get out of your own ego and your own reality a little bit, just a little bit, and serve other people. And you can find God. And so it's just so hopeful and so wonderful to know that if anything that we do with any kind of consciousness, awareness, seeking outside of ourself, our little reality, as I said, our little ego, anything we do to expand beyond that, eventually, with enough of that happening, we're going to get to that goal of union with God, of seeing and feeling and being aware of that presence all the time. So, like I said, this is good news, and it's wonderful because it happens everywhere in everything that we're doing. It doesn't leave anybody out. It doesn't leave any activity out of the picture. Nothing. Everything we do. Even Master, if you remember, he said, even if you're tempted by desires, by sin, to do things that you really know you shouldn't be doing, he said, take God with you. Just because if we try to move in that direction, if we try to look for God in everything and include God in everything, then that's what will happen. And it will come to us, that awareness. So it's wonderful. Even in the Christmas story, because here we are in the Christmas season, and I've been thinking a lot about the Christmas story. I've been doing an Advent class that we have here for each week leading up to Christmas. And in the tradition that we have here, the Advent, each week stands for or is represented by different parts of the Christmas story. And so I've been having a lot of fun looking for God, finding that presence within the Christmas story. And so the first week is for the three wise men. The three wise men represent hope. And that's week number 1. The second week is the theme of love, and that's Mary and Joseph. And the third week is the shepherds, and they represent the theme of joy. And then the fourth week is the angels, and the angels represent light, of course. And so exploring this story, this Christmas story, and meditating on it, thinking a lot about it, and talking about it, and seeing the figures, putting up the nativities. I have quite a nativity collection at home. I have a lot of different kinds because I think they're all so beautiful, and it's hard not to, get another one when I see one that's just beautiful. So I have quite a few of them, and looking at all of these, the wonderful drama of the story of Christmas and Jesus being born. It just, you can dive into it in deeper and deeper ways. The three wise men in particular, of course, most of you probably have all heard Master's declaration to Swami that sort of was a surprise to him, was that Master said three wise men were actually 3 of the avatars of this path: Jesus and Babaji and Lahiri. No, yes. Jesus, they came to see Jesus. So Babaji, Lahiri, and Yukteswar. And that they were, of course, in a different incarnation at that time, and that they traveled to see the newborn avatar and to honor and welcome him, as it says in our song. And that's a wonderful thought, that this group of avatars has been watching the planet and taking care of us and bringing us the light, through countless ages across time and probably many yugas. And that they're always there helping and reminding us and guiding us and giving us that wisdom and helping us to awaken to that light. It's a wonderful, wonderful thought. And also the three wise men's gifts. I have a lot of fun just thinking about this story and looking for the spiritual lessons, because everything in life is spiritual. The whole purpose of life is spirituality. It's our spiritual growth. It's our self-realization, our union with God. So there's nothing that doesn't apply to that. And so looking for it in the Christmas story is a lot of fun. The three wise men each brought gifts, as we know. And the gifts were gold and frankincense and myrrh, according to the story. And to explore that idea of what those things meant and what they can mean for our spiritual growth. The gold is said to represent the outward material riches, the what a king would have. Giving gold to a king, it was recognition of his kingship, of his power and the glory in an outward way. Then the frankincense was a recognition of him as God. That frankincense was used in sacrifice and ritual and in worshiping, offering to God. And the myrrh was said to represent his sacrifice or the death on the cross, because it's an ointment used for preparing a body after death. But we can take that in a lot of ways, the gifts that we want to give and that we want to offer to the Christ consciousness within. Perhaps our desire for outward material success and riches in the form of money or anything else, that we can offer that to that Christ consciousness. Or perhaps also the recognition that God is the only reality that we want to have in our lives. And that's the frankincense, the recognition of God as the all-powerful, the source of everything that we desire is there. And perhaps also the fear. The myrrh can represent the fear we have of death, and the sacrifice that we know we have to make in order to be on the spiritual path. Or you can offer your past, your present, your future. You can offer your subconscious, your conscious, and your superconscious mind. You can offer your meditations morning, noon, and night. You can, just find meaning in that and the hope of the Christ consciousness and the coming of the Christ in some way. Find meaning in everything, in everything. That's what Jesus was saying, and that's what Master says, and that's what Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita. Everything. If you see God everywhere and keep your consciousness in God, then God also will never lose you, so that it will, that union and that total realization will come. The other parts of the Christmas story are fun to explore as well. Jesus and Joseph and the theme of love. The opening that they provided for God to come. There has to be love in order for God to appear in our hearts, in our lives, in our minds, as an avatar to come to the planet, to be born here. There has to be an opening of love in some way. And that's what Mary and Joseph provided. They provided an opening so that God could come, because they were great devotees. They were great souls who loved God. And they also were willing to do anything. They didn't say, this is going to really mess up our lives. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. They just said, yes, we'll serve God in whatever way we can. And that open and that willingness. And then these amazing things can happen if that's there. And the journey that they took, No, the way their lives were changed because of that, that role that they took on. We can contemplate that as well. And the shepherds and their joy out on the field. It's very interesting that in the story, the angels and this revelation of Christ's presence came to them. And where were they? They were out in the fields. They were in the silence. They were in the stillness of the night when they could see the star and they could hear God's voice. And they could rejoice when they realized that the message was that God is right here. You don't have to travel anywhere. Right here, you can just go to the stable and see the baby, the Messiah that you've been waiting for. And you don't have to go to the priest. You don't have to go make a sacrifice. You don't have to do anything. You just have to hear the message and be awake and ready for it when it comes. And there he is. And you can bow down, you can worship, you can be in that presence. And the great joy that comes from that. And then the angels, of course, they're everywhere in the Bible. Angels told Mary, that she was going to be the mother of this avatar. Angels came and told the shepherds. Angel appeared to Joseph in a dream to tell him what was going on and to reassure him. The angels, a multitude of heavenly hosts came when the shepherds were out in the field. That rejoicing, that incredible joy and light, the singing of the angels. Of course, we know as Om, the sound of God, sound of that power and that presence. And they provided that light. And everywhere the angels go, what do? They reassure us, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. And they tell us that God is near. And that's the message of the angels always. I like thinking about even the other character in the story that we don't hear very much about was the innkeeper. And the innkeeper had this place. They went, Mary and Joseph were there. They were going to have this baby that was going to be born. They didn't have their family, they didn't have anywhere to go. They didn't have a reservation at the hotel, they showed up and this is going to happen. And the innkeeper made room for them in the inn. There were all these other worldly things going on. And yet the innkeeper, who can represent the inner awareness of that coming of the Christ consciousness within us, the innkeeper made room and said, yes, you can come in. Here's a place for you. And where was it? It was in the stable. It was away from the crowds. It was a quiet place of safety and warmth. And there was this space made for them. And what do at home? We make a space for God to be there with us. We make our meditation room. We try to carve out a little place away from the world, away from the cell phone, away from the crowds, away from all of our thoughts and our busyness of the day. And we make a space for that to happen and provide that safety and that place where that little baby Christ consciousness can be born and can be safe and taken care of and nurtured and seen and worshiped with our consciousness. So that story, as I said, because of this time of year, is very much in my mind. And you can have fun with it and do all kinds of things with that story to help you become more and more aware of God's consciousness everywhere. And it's a lot of those images and things are actually things that Master shared with us in his Christmas messages. He talked about Maitri read one, where he talked about the Christmas tree of inner awakening. And he talked about the cradle, to decorating the cradle and preparing for the baby, the coming of the Christ consciousness in the cradle of our hearts, which is another interesting thing. In the story, the star appears, and we know they talk about the star here. Star, Christ consciousness. I see Victoria in her, she has this huge spiritual eye there on the wall above her pictures. The star is here. We know that from our yogic teachings. And they talk about the star appearing. And there's a lot of discussion, if you read these things, in the Christian world about how the star can appear. If there was a star in the heavens, how can it move or appear over where the cradle is, over where the baby was going to be born? Well, of course, where's our heart? Our heart is here in the center of our body, on the pathway of the spine. And where is the star? It's over the cradle where the Christ child is born. And so Master used a lot of these images and a lot of these ideas in his right. Whispers from Eternity is filled with all of this imagery and these ideas that Master puts out about finding God in everything. He uses almost any image that you can think of in the outer world as a way to tune into God's presence. He mentions submarines in the Whispers from Eternity, and all of the natural world and the busyness of traffic and the sounds, just everything. He uses that in his poetry about God. And it's a way, I guess what I'm saying is you don't have to worry about whether it's true, whether it's cosmically significant in some way. Just open your eyes and your heart and in any way that you can and find God in everything, because God is there in everything. But be practical. That's the affirmation today too. So meaning not to get caught up in superstition, in sort of a woo-woo attitude. That's not helpful. If it's practical, it's helpful. It actually, we can apply it, and we can actually, something like, I pulled up to the traffic light and I was thinking about, what to do about this decision, and the traffic light turned red. So that meant God was telling me to stop and not to do, start making up things about God in your mind that sort of goes along with whatever we want to have happen. I'm not talking about that. I mean, just the presence of God in everything, in absolutely everything. And we can just fill our hearts and minds. The other thing is, if you don't remember it at the time, which a lot of times we don't think about these things all the time. But, at the end of the day or later, we can say, well, gosh, I didn't think about God all day long. Well, then fill your heart, fill your memories, fill your thoughts of the day with God. Okay, well, I was there at that meeting today. Where was God in that? Where was God when I was, at the store buying groceries and was totally spaced out? I wasn't thinking about God at all, but God was present. So in your memory, put God there and say, yes, God was present there. And maybe I didn't notice it at the time, but it didn't mean God wasn't present. God is there all the time, everywhere, loving everything, everybody, constantly, without end, unconditionally, the same in every circumstance, in every place on the planet, in everything that we can do, all the time. It just, that I'm repeating myself, but it's just, we've got to keep telling ourselves that it's true all the time. And God is, oddly enough, God is not more present at Christmas time than other times. It's the same in July as it is in Christmas. The thing is, that's wonderful about Christmas time is that more people are awake about it, and more people are paying attention to it, and more people are thinking about it. and singing the songs and reading the story and sharing and decorating and putting out the nativities and doing all those Christmas things. So it's like, you know, the light is more turned on, and there's an increased consciousness. There's a ether is sort of vibrating with that awareness as more people are tuning into that. And so it seems more present to us because we're all connected in our consciousness. So if more people are being awake and aware about that, it feels like that presence is more here. But it's not really true in the sense of, you know, God shows up more at Christmas time. God is with us constantly the same all the time. And as we become more awake and aware, then we can also reflect that and expand that and share that with our consciousness. So like the saints do, you know, you went around Swami and you were with him in July, it felt like Christmas, you know, and it just, the saints radiate that all the time. So as we become more aware and our consciousness wakes up more, we can radiate that also even more and help the whole vibration, you know, be uplifted. Coming together at your Christmas retreat is just, you know, we retreat and we come together in that way just to lift that consciousness and expand it and to feel it and to make it feel more real. And part of us starts waking up more and saying, yes, wow, this is real. This is really amazing. It's wonderful. I can feel it. I know that this is true. And so just, it's wonderful. And then the more we tune into that, of course, the more we carry that with us, the more it'll affect our outer life, the more we will remember God, the more it's just more and better. Like, like Sister Gyanamata said, it'll just be more and better. And Frank Laubach, some of you may have heard of him. He was a saintly Christian man who served as a missionary. He talked about practicing the presence of God and the awareness of God's presence and trying to feel God through everything. And he talked about this game of minutes of trying to remember God every minute. Anyway, he said a wonderful thing. He said, everybody achieves that awareness of God's presence sometimes, even just for a brief moment. We've all felt that. We've all, when we're deep in meditation, when we're at a retreat, when, you know, anything, when we're at the ocean, there's been this opening and this sense of that enormity of that presence and the reality of it and our oneness with it. We've all had that. And he asked the question just scientifically, he said, well, if we've all experienced that, can it be achievable all the time? And that's what he said he was trying to do. He said he was going to have this experiment to see if you could actually achieve that all the time. And of course, that's what Master tells us. It's what the avatars tell us. Yes, you can achieve it all the time. That's why we're here. Of course, that's why we're here. And Master talked about doing it as an experiment also. And so that's what this reading is about. That's what Christmas is really about, is if we can tune into that Christ consciousness, that awareness of that presence, even for a moment, and realize that it's true, then can we do that all the time? And can we do that with intention and with consciousness, you know, not just accidentally, not just hoping that it happens at some point, but actually consciously, with awareness, with intention, as much as we possibly can remember to do it. Open up to that and be aware of God's presence. And all of the saints, all of the masters, Christ, all told us, yes, we can do it. It's achievable and it's inevitable for all of us, for every soul. It will happen. One more moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorna. That was beautiful, and I want to give you a more proper introduction. I didn't really. Lorna is from Ananda Portland, but she's the co-spiritual director of Ananda Portland too, and a dear friend. So, but that was beautiful, and I'm so glad that you said everything you've said, because I was actually going to ask you about the Advent part. If you didn't, if you know, because I had seen in your newsletter that you had been doing that class, and I thought, oh, I want to hear more about that. So it was beautiful that you shared that with us. So thank you so much. And
You're welcome.
I just want to invite everybody now that we're gonna come off of Facebook in just a moment. Those who are on Facebook, if you want to join us, then you can go out to our website and grab the link there. We would love to have you join us, but we are going to do our interactive Satsang, and we go off of Facebook for that. So that said, we'll go off of Facebook, and we're going to invite everybody to open their cameras if they'd like to, and ask a question or make a comment. Lorna would love to hear your feedback. Yeah. Or you can put it in the chat. And so go ahead. I see that Supriya said something about...
Actually mentioned the World Brotherhood Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, she says the event, the village is doing theirs tonight, which I had forgotten that they're doing that tonight. The World Brotherhood Day is interesting. It's one of those events, if people aren't familiar with it, that isn't set at a particular day. So it's just usually sometime at the beginning of the Christmas season. So we had ours last night or yesterday. And it's a tradition, over like 40 years old. I think it started in the 80s. And it's a wonderful way of acknowledging, as she said, our oneness, that all souls everywhere are part of one family. And that's what self-realization is about. It's a universal teaching. And so, tune in tonight if you can. I'm sure that'll be a wonderful event.
Did you do yours in person this year, or did you do it online?
We did it both. We streamed it, and we had it actually in our temple. We had a small group in our temple, and it was lovely. We shared a slideshow of Swamis that you might want to look into one time. It's called Different Worlds.
Oh yeah.
He created, you remember that? He created that, I think, in the 80s at some point. And so it's just up on YouTube. Ananda Portland, Ananda Worldwide posted it. Anyway, we shared that, and I also made another little slideshow with the Brothers soundtrack, the Brothers song, and we had people sharing personally. And anyway, it was a lovely evening. It was fun.
Yeah, and I'll mention too that it was Ananda Portland and Lorna who inspired us to start our evening of remembrance, which we did our second year in a row here a month ago. We did it. We do it a little later than you. We're doing it around Thanksgiving, kind of, and it was a wonderful gathering, and just thank you for that inspiration. It's been really rewarding for us to come together and share in that way too.
That's one of the things that I think has even gotten better with Zoom, because we were doing it, in our temple, and we would have people bring their pictures of loved ones in, and we'd put them on the altar, and we'd do a rose ceremony. People do rose petals, which was lovely, and having the pictures up there, which was a lovely way to do it. And we'll go back to doing it that way eventually, but to create the slideshow and have them up on, a lot of people have told me it's a wonderful thing, because you get to sort of tune into the pictures even better on the Zoom presentation of that. And that's gotten to be a wonderful tradition, favorite one here as well.
I just want to toss in to Lorna, because you probably don't know this. Like, how could you know this? That what we've done here is people sent in pictures in advance to Mark and Maya Tree, and they made a beautiful slideshow. We're very slowly, to lovely music. May I just say thank you to you two that we got to see the pictures during our day of remembrance. It was so beautiful.
It's a, like I said, it's a wonderful way to do it. I think people can tune into it even better when they get to see the pictures up close. That's great. I'm glad you guys have found that to be fun. Mallory, everyone.
You want to go ahead and read it out loud?
Yes. Okay. She says, it occurred to me that the more I look for God, I need to be willing for God to see me and have to trust that I won't be judged. So that's a growing edge for me when letting God in more, that trust. Absolutely true. It goes both ways, doesn't it, Mallory? And seeing God in everything, of course, recognizing that God is within us already, that we're one and the same thing. And you're right. A lot of us have that fear of being judged, not doing the right thing, and at the end of the day, that self, recrimination or that guilt, I'm supposed to think of God all the time and I didn't even do it. I can't even remember when I thought about God today. And instead of going to sleep with the thought of God, we go to sleep with the thought of what a loser I am or how I messed up, and I didn't do it right. And you know what? Master says that is a misuse of our memory. Memory, the sole purpose of memory is to remember God, is to remember goodness. And he said, we have to use our memory to remember noble things. And otherwise, it's a wrong use of our memory. And to remember the good things. That's why I said, even if you forget and you don't look for God everywhere, when you remember, and you will, when you remember later, put God in the picture. Say, I had that experience. I wasn't thinking about God at the time, but God was there. God was there in that person that smiled at me. God was there in the sunlight that was shining upon me. God was there in that other person that I was having the argument with. God was there. And to remember that God's presence is there. And when we remember, don't beat ourselves up about the fact that we forgot. Rejoice in the fact that we remembered, because memory of God is what we're trying to do. That's smriti. Remember, that's the word we use, smriti, as divine remembrance. So even if we remember late, we're remembering, and that we should be really happy about. We're remembering, and to remember the goodness in ourselves, in other people, in our circumstances. He said that is what memory is for. If we remember goodness, what is the source of goodness? The source of all goodness is God. So the more we remember goodness, the more we put in our mind on goodness, the more that will lead us to God. And he even said, if we remember the good things that we do, we will be born a good person in our next life. Which, you turn that coin around and say, oh, so if that's the way it works, if I remember the good things, I will be born a good person. If I remember all the bad things, what does that mean for my next life? It means our consciousness is going to be in the wrong place. So absolutely, Mallory, remember and trust that God is loving us all the time, no matter what we do, all the time. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so many of us grew up with, I can say this because I can see who's online, and I know I did, with the judgmental God. Mm-hmm. And, we know that's not the way he is. Now, we have to learn that to release that memory and not to judge ourselves and others. But that picture of the stern sitting in the chair, you know, for some reason he didn't have a trident, but whatever he had in his hand, it was something. And he was so I was afraid of God. Jesus was my friend, but God the Father was like, I don't think. And I had a very loving but stern father. So that was a blessing. Anyway, I think we, like you say, we just have to release that memory if we had it. I did, and move on. That I am a child of God. Therefore, fill in the blank. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mhm.
Lorna, I don't have a question, but I always just kind of turn on my my video here as I do things around the house, and so I wasn't really looking at your face, but I was just listening to your words, and I was just struck at how balanced everything you said was, both intellectually, spiritually, emotionally. I just want to compliment you on all the work you must have done on yourself to be able to speak with such clarity and balance. It's just been a really pleasant pleasure to listen to you today.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in today, Eric. I appreciate that. And it's just our guru. It's just master. It's just what we share when we come together, when we feel that upliftment and that inspiration. It's God coming through. That's why Swami would always say, God's the doer. I wasn't the one who gave that talk, or I wasn't the one who did that. I wasn't the one who wrote all those books. And it's not that I am at this level of awareness that I can just feel God working through me all the time. I just try to open. And when anything happens that's uplifting or inspiring, the really important thing to remember is that that's not you. It's not me. It's not the ego. It's not the small self. It's an opening that God found to come through, because God's just there trying to come through and loving us and inspiring us all the time. Inspiration is just a realization of that presence. That's all it is.
You've done a very good job of opening then. Let me say that.
Good. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I would say that you are a representation, an archetype, archetype or whatever, of upliftment and groundedness. A very nice blend.
Well,
yeah. But
again,
I was just going to make a comment about the remembrance part. I know for myself, it's interesting that sometimes one of my, and it's not like I think about it, it just sort of typical of me, sort of blurts it out. I have a different archetype, right? But at any rate, it's sometimes when I can't see God, but I guess I have the awareness that, well, where the heck is God? Is that prayer is, God, where are you in this? Mm-hmm. And I've had the most remarkable responses when I've clearly and heartfeltly expressed that prayer. It's a good one to remember as well. It's like when you can't and you want to, and you make that prayer demand, you'll be surprised at what might come back to you to give you that awareness. And it is very deep and touching. And then, again, then you have that smriti to remember that in the next time. And so hopefully it's just like beads, beautiful beads on a string, that eventually you get this whole necklace that you wear, and then you're there.
And then you're there. Swami actually also, he said that God's presence, I think this may have been in the longer version of the reading, he referred to it, he said it's like a fire. Embers, if you look at a smoldering fire, there are places in the coals and all where there's not open flames. There may be a flame somewhere else, but the fire is smoldering other places, and there's hot coals in other places. And it's all, that fire is there, but in different forms and hiding. You might have to blow on it a little bit or get that ember going. But it's always there. It's just, I think, praying about it and asking for help with that is absolutely a very smart thing to do. Very smart.
Lorna, hello. So glad you're here. And similar to Eric, I was just thinking, boy, this is a really good one. I've heard a lot of Christmas talks, and I really loved every aspect of it. And but what came to mind early on, you mentioned about being careful about if is a miracle really happening. And when we drive downtown for like 20 years where we've lived, we never had a light. So they added this one light near where you, before you get on the highway. And it's like my wife and I are driving up, you know, it's like, oh, it turned green for us. And then we kept doing that. And then we realized, you know, no matter where we were, you weren't going to stop more than 10 seconds. And then we just decided that they must have some kind of signals to see who's driving up. And they just always stop the other people because the whole subdivision is trying to get out where we are, only rarely. And so we decided that was not a miracle. But miracles do happen all the time, don't they?
All the time.
And the more we meditate and more we expand our social engagement system with the upper chakras, and the ultimate thing we can do there, obviously, is to be more aware the ultimate social engagement is with God. So we help one another, we give and we receive. It's serving and it's being served, and that's all part of the what they call the what was it? Hang on a second. The ventral vagal complex of part of the polyvagal theory. So the thing is that my deal is that I figured out how everything works, you know. And so, you know, yeah, I've worked as an engineer. I got another few days, anyways, before I retire. But I figured out how stuff works. So when, thank you,
Congratulations.
thank you very much. When Hong Sa was explained how that works, I really keyed in on that. And then how Kriya works. Some of it's written, some of it when they describe it, you know, and I'm like taking this to all, you know, the second Kriya, the third and the fourth. I got it all figured out how it works. and it is a matter of that the upper chakras awaken this higher part of our parasympathetic nervous system. And that's why after we meditate, we want to be with people. We'd love to hug them. I guess we don't hug them as much right now, but the ultimate social engagement is with God. That's the thing I kind of decided might be true.
It's absolutely true, because that's what we are for each other. Is we're just that connection with God. And you know, somebody asked Swami one time, you know, how can I feel all this love from people I don't even know? Because he was new at Ananda. And Swami said, well, because what I see in you is God. I already love God. So it's easy to love you, you know? So you're right. It's all about God loving God. It's all about that engagement with God. And what fun that God has given us so many wonderful friends, guru bhais, devotees, strangers, people, to just discover and love God even more. It just makes it so much more interesting and fun. So, thank you.
Sure does.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank
Good
you.
to hear from you.
Thank you, Lorna. I'll just interject that every time you came to the center, I was off to the village. So this has like been one of the best where I've been able to hear you. So
Good. Yes.
for being here.
That's our karma, Mike. It's just Zoom karma.
All right. Anybody else? I can't.
Hi, I'm speaking. Oh, you can't see. Hi, Maitri, it's Pam.
There you are.
Hi, Maitri. Hi, everybody. Hi, Lorna. Sam and I we're members of Ananda Monterey Bay.
Wonderful.
And we have such great friends in Ananda, Texas. And we're very fortunate to be able to plug in to the wonderful energy there.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say thank you every time. And I remember you from the last time you were on, and I thought, oh, and I think it was Eric or someone said, just you bring such a beautiful vibration that you're reflecting so beautifully. I think what Master's intention to, how he felt, his vibration. And you can, I think we're attuned to and recognize and respond to others who have felt that as well and who are working on attempting to touch it in their own lives. Excuse me. There's something that came to me back, oh gosh, when I was in, might have been YTT or something or other. I've mentioned this before. Something, it's a concept that it was given, and it was a beautiful thing that I've used many times. My name is Pam, but something said, tune in to Pam Prime. And it allows me an instant connection with a higher part of myself that sometimes I forget many times I forget is there. And there are times that becomes maybe my best friend. There are times it just gives me a direct line. So I like to give that concept to people as well, that whatever your name is, Supriya Prime, it just automatically, instantly takes you to some higher place. And that was such a precious gift I was given. I love to share it with everyone I come across. So, and you walk around in a Lorna Prime a lot, I can tell.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's wonderful to recognize that there is this higher part of ourself, this higher place that we can be. And we're just working on staying there all the time. Sometimes we don't, but it's there. It's absolutely there and accessible. Thank you. That's a wonderful inspiration.
It gives me an excuse to rationalize the idea. I've had conversations in my own head with myself for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
I've just not been able to put a name to that other person, whoever I'm talking to. So thank you very, very much. I really appreciate your
appreciate that.
Sam and Pam, I'm so glad you're here. You were hidden in my little view box. And I'm just wondering if you want to invite Lorna sometime.
Yes.
There you go. I thought maybe so. That's why I said that. So here's your introduction.
Well, I didn't want to put Lorna on the spot, but oh my gosh, I would love if you would take time one Sunday in the future to come and speak.
It would be wonderful. Thank you. Again, it's the blessing of this technology that we have, that we can do that. It's wonderful to be with people. I'm looking forward to the day when I can actually fly to Dallas and be there again and land and be with them. But oh my gosh, we can do it this way, and it's terrific. So yes, of course, you can get my contact information from Maitri, but it's just Lorna at Ananda Portland. That's my email. So of course, just let me know when.
But it's a willingness. I mean, there's a willingness
Absolutely.
on your part as well. And I never assume.
Absolutely.
So, I've actually been turned down a couple of times. So it's like, okay, fine. I won't put people on the spot too many times if I can help it. Thank you. We're about to have to prepare for our service, which will start in about a half an hour. So if we pop off, just know we're with you anyway.
Okay.
And thank you all.
Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Good to see you guys.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Jai
Christmas.
Guru. Jai Guru.
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Thank you very much. It was beautiful talk, to be aware of every small thing in every situation. Very, very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Mark and Maitri also. Would love to have a recording of your talk today to absorb some more. And the way you explained about the Christmas and the angels and all, I was not aware of all those things. So if there's a recording, if it can be shared, I would like to listen one more time to really absorb it properly. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Neelam. Neelam is in Austin, and she's part of our Austin group.
I'm from India.
Yeah.
Now in US for many months, and love being here and listening to you all. Thank you so much.
And Neelam, just to respond to your question, I think you will see that recording very soon, if not by tomorrow, because our web person now, Lorna, we have this amazing web person, And anyway, he's actually in the Bay Area. He's
Oh, great.
and connected to him through Laurelwood. It's just so bizarre, these connections. Anyway, he's now very much on top of these videos. They're not
Very good.
they're not on they're on our YouTube channel, and I actually had the very same thought, Neelam. I was thinking, well, maybe I should put this talk in our next newsletter too. Lorna used to do a lot of our web design and website and our newsletter. She's our newsletter guru, and and so
Beautiful.
she knows how to serve. She has been really connected to Ananda Dallas and has been so willing and serviceful. She's puts a high bar for all of us in her service and humility in so many ways. So anyway, we will have that video very soon.
Good to remember, listen, and then remember again. The
Yeah.
Simriti has to come back unless we listen few times to really relate to it and to remember to see in everything, good and bad. Good, yes, sometimes we do. Bad, we do forget totally.
Yeah.
So God is there every time, every moment. We missed him, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? We're we can go on a little bit longer if Lorna is willing, and if anybody else has more
I'm here.
questions. Does anybody want to put anything in the chat? There was a little aside chat to me, and I want to just clarify it before maybe these people are off. But it was about our poinsettias. If you do want to donate a poinsettia, I got a little confused in my mind. There's so many different things happening right now. Yes, you can just go to our website and make a donation, then email me, maitri@anandadallas.org, your name. There was also a link in the newsletter. There isn't a signage on the website for the poinsettias. That will happen just when we have the names, but there wasn't one to sign up through the website. So the way you do it is either go to the newsletter and you'll see the blurb there, or just make a donation on the website and then email me your names. Either way, you have to email me your names. So that's it. Hopefully that answered that question.
And you want not only their names, but the names of the
Well, that's
person
what I'm
that
talking
they're-
about.
that
Yeah.
they're-
Yeah, I don't
it's
need-
in remember.
Yeah, it's just the names you want to be remembered. It's a big topic today. So anybody else? Other comments? We'll pause here for a moment to give the shy ones.
It's okay. Okay.
We've been advised at times to pause more, so we were trying to pause.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and can we put up our grid for a moment, or so we can see everybody, and we'll give one last chance for if people want to open their cameras. Otherwise, we will probably allow Lorna to get on with her day, and those of us who are Cowboy fans to get on to their game that's taking place. We have no idea what the score is. It's a big game. Anyway, but that was not in my mind except just this moment. So
Not
anyway,
there too.
Cowboys.
yeah, and I want to just say a shout out to Jeanette there. Jeanette, happy belated birthday. You just had a birthday, and I forgot to acknowledge it. I'm so sorry, but I just happy birthday. If you're hearing us or you're there, we're all sending birthday blessings to you.
Another December baby.
Yeah, sometimes those December babies, he's one of them. They can get a little lost in the shuffle, but I am thinking of you and remembering you now, and blessings. We'll all send our blessings. So,
Birthday, Jeanette.
yeah. All right. Well, I guess we
Thank
will
you,
wrap this
everybody.
Thank you so much, Maitri.
Yeah.